The night was quiet, too quiet for the little town at the edge of the forest. The moon shone pale and thin, and the trees stood tall like silent guards. David, a simple man who lived alone in a wooden cabin, was finishing his evening tea when he heard it, a sound that did not belong. It was not thunder, though it roared like thunder. It was not lightning, though the sky flashed bright. It was something else, something strange, something that made the ground shake beneath his feet. David's hands froze on the table. His heart beat hard inside his chest. He stepped outside and looked at the sky. A streak of light burned across the dark clouds like a falling star, but brighter, closer, heavier. It screamed as it tore through the night, and then far in the forest there came a crash, loud, deep, and final. The earth trembled. Birds exploded from the trees in wild panic. David's first thought was fear. His second thought was curiosity. Something inside him whispered, "Go look." Another voice warned, "Stay away." But David was not the kind of man who could sit still after hearing such a thing. He grabbed his flashlight, pulled on his old jacket, and walked into the forest. The night air was cold, and each step made the leaves crunch softly beneath his boots. The smell of smoke soon drifted through the trees, sharp and strange like burning metal. The deeper he went, the stranger it became. The animals were silent. No owl, no fox, no movement at all. Only his breath and his footsteps. The forest was holding its breath, as if it too waited to see what had fallen from the sky. Finally, David reached a clearing. His eyes widened. In the middle of broken trees and torn earth lay a wreck. It was not a plane. It was not a car. It was not anything he had ever seen. A small craft, silver and glowing faintly, lay half buried in the soil. Sparks hissed from its sides. Smoke rose in twisting lines. David stepped closer, his heart hammering. The shape of the craft was smooth, round, almost alive. Strange marks glowed along its surface, like writing from another world. He reached out, then pulled his hand back, unsure if it was safe. Then he heard it, a sound soft and weak coming from inside. A cry, not mechanical, not metal. A human sound. David's fear melted into something else, concern. Carefully, he found a broken panel and pushed it aside. Inside, the air was hot, heavy with smoke. And there she was, a girl. No, not fully human. She was small, fragile, her skin pale but marked with faint glowing lines that pulsed like light under her flesh. Her hair, long and silver, spread around her like threads of moonlight. Her clothes were torn, unlike anything David had ever seen, soft fabric that shimmered faintly even in the dark. She was breathing, but shallow, weak. Her lips moved, forming words he did not understand. Then her eyes opened. David froze. Her eyes were large, bright, shining with a strange light, almost like stars. They looked at him with fear, but also with trust, as if she had been waiting for him. David, she whispered. David's blood turned cold. How did she know his name? He had never seen her. He had never told her who he was. Yet she spoke it, weak but clear, before her head fell back and her eyes closed again. For a moment, David could not move. His world had changed in a single second. He had come here out of curiosity, but now he stood at the edge of something greater, something terrifying, something that made his life of quiet nights and simple days feel small. He looked at the girl again. She was hurt. She would die if he left her here. He knew it. His hands shook, but he reached inside and gently lifted her. She was light, too light, as if she weighed less than she should. Her skin was warm, almost glowing in the dark. Carrying her in his arms, David stepped back from the wreck. He glanced at the forest, at the shadows between the trees. For a second, he felt something watching him. A presence, cold and sharp. But when he turned his flashlight, there was nothing. Only silence. He walked quickly, almost running now, his boots striking the ground with heavy thuds. The forest felt different, alive, whispering with secrets. Every step made him think, what am I carrying? Who is she? Why me? The smoke faded behind him. The night swallowed the wreck, but the memory of it burned in his mind. He reached his cabin, kicked the door shut behind him, and laid the girl gently on his old bed. She stirred, whispering again in her strange language. The glowing marks on her skin pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat of light. David sat beside her, unsure what to do, but one thing was clear. He could not call anyone, he could not tell anyone. This was bigger than him, bigger than his town. For now, it was his secret. The fire in the hearth flickered. The alien girl breathed softly, and David sat there staring, knowing his life would never be the same. The night outside stretched long and silent, but somewhere deep in the forest unseen eyes were already searching. The cabin was small, built from old wood and filled with the quiet smell of smoke and earth. David had lived there for years, alone, far from the noise of the town. But now in that same cabin something impossible lay sleeping on his bed. The alien girl. Her breathing was soft, shallow, but steady. The glowing marks on her skin pulsed like gentle waves of light, sometimes bright, sometimes dim. David sat in a chair by the fire staring at her, trying to understand what had just happened. Every thought in his head clashed with the next. She was not human. She was not from Earth. And yet she had spoken his name. How? Why him? Hours passed. Outside the forest was still too still. The usual sounds, the call of an owl, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of wolves were gone. It was as if the whole forest had fallen silent to listen, waiting for something. At last the girl stirred. Her eyes opened slowly and that strange light returned, shining like starlight in her gaze. David leaned forward, careful not to startle her. "You're safe," he said softly, though he wasn't sure if she could understand. "You're safe here." She blinked at him, her lips parting. A soft sound escaped, a word in a language David did not know. It was beautiful, flowing but completely foreign. David shook his head. "I don't understand." The girl frowned faintly, then tried again. She touched her chest weakly and said one word, slow, careful, almost like she was teaching him. "Lyra." David repeated it. "Lyra." Her eyes softened. She nodded, and a small smile touched her lips before she winced in pain. David stood, quickly fetching water. He helped her drink, his hands shaking as her silver hair brushed his arm. She drank only a little, then lay back, her glowing marks dimming again. He knew she needed rest, but he also knew he couldn't just sit here. Something about the crash, about her, about the silence in the forest, it meant danger. He felt it. For the next few days, David kept her hidden. He treated her wounds as best he could with herbs and supplies from town. She healed fast, faster than any human would. The glowing marks on her skin seemed to knit her injuries together, leaving no scars behind. But as her body healed, something else began to happen. She started to learn. At first she only watched him, repeating simple words he used. Water, fire, food. Her voice was soft, uncertain, but quick to pick up sounds. Soon she could form short phrases. "You help me. You kind. David. Friend." Each time she said his name, David felt a chill. How had she known it on that first night? He wanted to ask, but whenever he tried, she only smiled faintly and looked away. The nights grew stranger. The forest no longer felt empty, it felt watched. Sometimes when David went outside to fetch wood, he thought he saw shadows moving between the trees. Not animals, not human shapes either, but something else. The air seemed thicker, as if it carried eyes he could not see. One evening, while Lyra sat near the fire, staring at the flames with wide eyes, David asked the question that had been burning inside him. "Why are you here?" he said slowly, hoping she would understand. "Why, Earth?" Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes serious. She pressed a hand to her chest. "Run," she said. Then she pointed to the sky. "Danger," David frowned. "Danger? From the sky?" She nodded. Her face tightened with fear and her glowing marks flared bright for a moment, then dimmed. David's stomach sank. Whatever she was running from, it wasn't over. And if they were chasing her, they might already be coming here. That night, David could not sleep. He sat by the window watching the forest. The moon hung heavy and the trees stood dark and tall. Then, just before dawn, he saw it. Movement. Figures, faint and glowing, moving through the trees. Too tall, too graceful to be human. They carried spears that shimmered with strange light, and their armor glowed faintly like stars caught in metal. David's breath caught. His first thought was fear. His second thought was that they were searching for her. He turned quickly to Lyra, who was already awake. Her eyes were wide, her glowing marks bright with alarm. She whispered something fast in her own language, shaking her head. The figures moved closer, silent but sure. They surrounded the cabin like hunters closing in. David's heart pounded. He reached for the old hunting rifle he kept by the door, but deep inside he knew it would not matter. These were not men. These were not from Earth. The door creaked. A tall shadow fell across the wood, and then a voice, clear and strange, spoke from the other side. Open. Human. We seek the child of light. Lyra gasped, clutching David's arm. She shook her head violently, whispering one word he could finally understand. No. David looked from her to the door, torn between fear and instinct. The cabin felt small, too small, as the shadows of the glowing figures stretched long against the walls. The silence broke as the voice spoke again, sharper now, colder. Open, or burn. David tightened his grip on the rifle. He looked at Lyra, whose eyes pleaded with him, glowing with fear and trust all at once. And in that moment, David knew. The secret he had tried to keep was no longer a secret. The world outside his cabin had found them. The forest held its breath once more. The cabin door rattled again. The voice outside was calm but heavy with threat. Open, human. David's hand tightened on the old rifle. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs stayed firm as if nailed to the floor. Beside him, Lyra clutched his sleeve, her glowing eyes filled with fear. Then, before David could decide, the door swung open on its own. No kick, no smash, it simply moved as if commanded. In the doorway stood figures unlike anything David had ever seen. Tall, graceful, and fierce, their armor shimmered like liquid silver. Strange markings glowed faintly along their arms, the same kind of light that ran beneath Lyra's skin. Each one carried a weapon, long spears tipped with humming crystal, blades that caught the light of the fire though no flame touched them. For a moment, the world froze. David aimed his rifle, but deep down he knew. If these warriors wanted him dead, he would not even have time to pull the trigger. Then, something unexpected happened. The tall figures lowered their weapons and bowed, not to David, but to the girl hiding behind him. Child of light, one of them said, their voice echoing like two voices at once, strange yet beautiful. We have found you. David blinked. He turned to Lyra, confused. She trembled, shaking her head, pressing closer to him as though refusing to step forward. The tallest warrior, clearly their leader, lifted her head. Her eyes, glowing blue, fixed on David. You, human, she said, her accent heavy but clear. You carried her. You sheltered her. David's mouth went dry. She was hurt, he said, his voice low. I couldn't leave her. The leader tilted her head. You risked your life for her, though she is not of your kind. David swallowed. She's alive. That was enough. The leader studied him for a long moment. Then she turned back to Lyra. You must come with us. It is not safe here. But Lyra clung to David's arm, her silver hair falling across her face. Her voice trembled as she spoke one word. Stay. The room grew heavy with silence. The tribe of women exchanged glances. Their glowing eyes softened, but their leader frowned. You know what follows us, she said to Lyra. You know what hunts you. If you remain here, the danger will spread. The humans' world will burn. David's chest tightened. He wanted to ask questions. Who were they? What danger? Why Earth? But the weight of their presence crushed the words in his throat. Finally, the leader spoke again. You cannot hide forever, child of light. If you choose this man, his fate will be bound to yours. David looked at Lyra, then at the warriors. He felt the fire's heat at his back, the cool night air at his front. Every instinct told him to let them take her, to walk away and return to his quiet life. But when he looked into Lyra's glowing eyes, full of trust and fear, he knew. He could not give her up, not now. Not after she had whispered his name in that wreck. Not after she had fought to learn his words. She stays here, David said, his voice firmer than he expected. With me. The warrior stirred. Some frowned. One muttered something sharp in their language. But the leader only watched him, her face unreadable. At last she spoke. So be it, but know this, human. The hunters are close. They will come, and they will not stop. Not for you. Not for your people. Only for her. Her words sent a chill down David's spine. He wanted to ask what kind of hunters, what kind of enemy. But before he could, the warriors stepped back into the night. Their leader paused at the doorway, her glowing spear faintly humming. She looked at David one last time. Protect her if you can. Few of our kind trust a human. Perhaps you are different. And then, like mist fading into air, the warriors were gone. One blink they were there. The next, only shadows remained. David shut the door slowly. His hands trembled as he set down the rifle. The fire cracked, but its warmth no longer comforted him. Lyra sat on the bed, her eyes wide, her glowing marks dim. She looked at him as though waiting for him to break, to push her away, to say it was too much. Instead, David sighed. He sat beside her. Looks like we're in this together now. Lyra's lips curved into a faint, fragile smile. Together, she whispered. But even as they sat in silence, David knew the truth. The forest outside was no longer safe. The sky above was no longer empty. The world he thought he knew was already changing, and somewhere, not far, something else was moving. The hunters the tribe had spoken of. Shadows in the dark, carrying fire from the stars. For the first time in his life, David wished he had never stepped outside that night. Yet at the same time, he knew he would not change it. Because now, whatever came, he could not abandon her. The secret guest was no longer just a secret. She was a part of him, and soon the whole world would know why. The cabin no longer felt like home. It felt like the center of a storm. David sat by the fire, staring at the girl, Lyra. The glow of her skin flickered faintly, like dying embers. She had fallen asleep after the tribe left, her breathing soft, her silver hair spread across the pillow like moonlight. But David was not calm. His thoughts burned. The tribe's warning echoed in his head. If she stays, danger will follow. If you protect her, your fate is tied to hers. He had lived a quiet life. No wars, no great adventures. Just wood, work, and silence, but now, he had seen warriors who vanished like mist. He had heard of hunters from the sky. And he had taken in a being who was clearly more than a simple lost girl. He looked at her and a question stabbed him over and over. What do I do? The next day, the world outside the cabin was strange. The forest was too quiet again. The birds had not returned. Even the wind seemed to avoid the trees. David chopped wood, trying to clear his head. But each strike of the axe only reminded him of the choice pressing on his chest. By night, Lyra was awake. She sat by the fire watching the flames, her glowing eyes reflecting gold. David sat across from her. He had to ask, "Why me?" he said softly. "Why did you speak my name that night? How did you know me?" Lyra tilted her head. She looked like she was searching for words. Then slowly she touched her temple, then his chest. "Dream," she whispered. "I see you before. You come, you save." David frowned. Dream? Could she mean visions? Had she seen him before she crashed here? "Save you," she said again, her voice trembling. "But danger come, big danger." David leaned closer. "What danger?" Her glowing marks flared brighter. "Hunters. They follow me. They follow my tribe. They take worlds. They break all." David's chest tightened. So the tribe was not just running. They were escaping something far worse. Something that moved across stars, destroying, consuming. He stood and paced, the weight of it all pressing down. If she stayed, that danger would find them. But if he let her go, she might die, or worse. He turned back to her. "What do you want, Lyra? Stay or go with your people?" Her eyes widened. She shook her head firmly. "Stay, with you." The words hit him like a stone. She had chosen him. She trusted him. But what about his world? His people? Could he risk it all for her? The fire snapped, sending sparks up the chimney. David sat down heavily. His mind raced between two paths, both heavy with fear. Let her go. The tribe would take her. Maybe she would be safe. Maybe Earth would be left alone. Keep her, protect her. But that meant facing whatever hunted her, facing enemies far beyond human strength. He rubbed his face with both hands. He had never been a soldier. He had never been a leader. He was just a man in a cabin, but deep down another voice spoke. The same voice that pushed him to enter the forest the night of the crash. The same voice that made him lift her from the wreck instead of walking away. If you let her go, you'll never forgive yourself. If you keep her, at least you tried. His choice was becoming clear. That night, as Lyra slept again, David stepped outside. The forest was cold, the moon sharp. He looked up at the sky, imagining ships hidden among the stars, hunters waiting to descend. Then, in the distance, a rumble shook the air. Not thunder. Not storm. Something else. David's heart dropped. A red glow shimmered faintly beyond the trees. The hunters. He ran back inside. "Lyra, wake up!" She sat up quickly, her glowing eyes wide. She felt it too. The marks on her skin blazed bright, casting the cabin in silver light. David grabbed his rifle, though he knew it would be nothing against what was coming. Still, it was all he had. The ground trembled again, this time closer. A distant roar split the night, metallic and inhuman. Lyra stood weak but fierce, her light pulsing. "They come." David met her eyes. For the first time, his fear fell away. He had made his choice already, even before the tribe's warning, even before her words. He would protect her. No matter what came, no matter who they were, no matter if the whole world turned against him, he would not give her up. "You're not alone anymore," he said firmly. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Outside, the red glow spread higher, brighter, filling the night like fire. The hunters were here, and the battle for Earth was about to begin. The night was burning red. David stood in the doorway of his cabin, rifle in hand, staring at the glow rising from the forest. It was not fire, not lightning. It was something worse, unnatural, sharp, metallic. The ground shook with every pulse. Trees trembled, branches cracked, and the animals that had been silent for days now fled in panic. Beside him, Lyra's glowing marks blazed like fireflies, brighter than ever, her wide eyes fixed on the forest, fear and fury mixed together. "They come," she whispered. "Hunters." David's chest tightened. He had chosen this path. He would protect her. But now, as the rumble grew louder, his human strength felt small, almost nothing. Then the first shadow appeared. Between the trees, tall figures stepped forward. Not alive, not human. Machines. Their bodies were dark steel, shaped like armored beasts, their heads sharp and insect-like. Red lights burned where eyes should be. Long claws scraped the ground as they moved, leaving deep marks in the earth. David raised his rifle. His hands shook, but he held steady. The nearest machine growled, a low hum of gears grinding. Then with sudden speed it lunged forward. David fired. The shot cracked through the night, echoing across the forest. The bullet struck metal and bounced. The machine barely slowed. "Run!" David shouted, pulling Lyra back into the cabin. The walls shook as the machine slammed against the side. Wood splintered. Dust rained from the ceiling. David fired again, this time at the glowing red eye. The glass cracked, sparks flying. The machine reeled for a moment, giving them a chance. Lyra stepped forward, her hands glowing like stars. The markings along her arms flared. With a sudden cry, she thrust her palms out. A wave of light burst from her, striking the machine. It screamed in a voice of metal and sparks before collapsing, its body smoking, its red eye dark. David stared, stunned. Lyra swayed, weak, but her eyes burned with determination. "No, stop," she said breathlessly. More come, and she was right. From the forest, more red lights appeared, dozens moving fast, closing in. David's heart pounded. "We can't stay here." He grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her toward the back of the cabin. They crashed through the door, running into the night. The forest loomed tall, shadows shifting with the hunter's glow. Behind them, the cabin shook again as more machines smashed through the walls. Wood cracked, glass shattered. His home, his safe place, was torn apart in seconds. David didn't look back. He only ran. Branches tore at his arms, roots caught his boots, but he pushed on. Beside him, Lyra stumbled, but kept pace, her glowing marks lighting the way. A screech split the night. One of the machines leapt forward, landing ahead of them, blocking the path. David raised his rifle again, aiming for the eye. The shot rang out. The bullet sparked off metal. The machine roared, but before it could strike, Lyra raised her hand again. Another wave of light shot forward. This time weaker, smaller, but enough to throw the machine off balance. "Go!" she shouted. They ran past the smoking body, deeper into the forest, but the hunters did not stop. More shadows moved between the trees, cutting them off, surrounding them. Red lights blinked in every direction, glowing like eyes of predators in the dark. David's lungs burned. His legs felt heavy. He knew they couldn't keep running. Not forever. Then suddenly shapes moved in the distance, different shapes. Tall, glowing, familiar. The tribe. The alien women appeared from the shadows, their silver armor shining, their crystal weapons humming with energy. They moved like lightning, striking the hunters with blades of light and spears of power. The machines roared, fighting back, but the tribe fought harder. Sparks flew, metal crashed, the forest lit with flashes of silver and red. The leader of the tribe raised her spear high, cutting through a hunter with one swing. She turned, her glowing eyes fixing on David. "You see now, human?" she shouted over the battle. "This is what follows her. This is what follows you." David gritted his teeth, holding Lyra close. He already knew. He had seen enough. Another machine lunged toward him. He fired again, this time aiming at a joint in its leg. The metal cracked and the creature stumbled. The tribe's warriors finished it with a burst of crystal light. David's chest heaved. He was no soldier, but tonight he fought like one. The hunters shrieked, their red eyes blinking, their bodies falling one by one under the tribe's blades and Lyra's bursts of light. At last silence returned. The forest smelled of smoke and burning metal. David lowered his rifle slowly. His arms shook, his ears rang, but he was alive. Lyra stood beside him, pale and weak, but still glowing faintly. The leader of the tribe stepped forward, her face stern. "This was only a taste," she said. "The hunters will return. In greater number, stronger." David swallowed hard. His cabin was gone. His quiet life was gone. And yet when he looked at Lyra, clutching his sleeve with trembling hands, he felt no regret. "I told you," he said quietly. "If they want her, they go through me." The leader studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are not just a man of this world. Perhaps you are more." The forest lay broken and smoking. The night was far from over. But David had faced the enemy, and now he knew. This fight was only beginning. The battle was over, but the night did not feel safe. The forest floor was littered with broken machines, their metal bodies smoking, their red eyes dark. The smell of burnt wires and cracked earth filled the air. David lowered his rifle, his arms trembling. His chest burned with each breath. He had fought with everything he had, yet he knew, without the alien tribe and Lyra's strange power, he would not have survived. The leader of the tribe stepped closer. Her silver armor glowed faintly in the moonlight, her spear humming with energy. She looked at David with eyes that glowed like blue fire. "You stood with us," she said, her voice calm but strong. "No human has ever done this." David said nothing at first. He only looked at Lyra. She was pale, weak, leaning against a tree for support. Her glowing marks had dimmed, faint flickers running across her skin. "I didn't fight for you," David said finally, his voice steady. "I fought for her." The leader studied him. Slowly she nodded. The tribe moved quickly, forming a circle around them. Some checked the fallen hunters, others watched the sky. They moved with discipline, like warriors who had fought this battle many times before. One of the younger warriors approached Lyra. She bowed deeply, placing her hand on her chest. "Child of light," she said softly in her own tongue. "We thought you lost." Lyra managed a weak smile but shook her head. Her glowing eyes turned to David. "Not lost," she whispered. "Found." David felt the weight of her words. Found. By him. The tribe led them away from the broken cabin, deeper into the forest. After hours of walking, they reached a hidden camp. Strange glowing crystals lit the clearing, casting silver light on tents made of shimmering fabric. Inside, the air was warmer, calmer. But the tension did not fade. David sat by the fire while Lyra rested, her head on a folded cloak. The tribe gathered around. Their leader spoke again. "You must know, human. The hunters are only one part of a greater enemy. They belong to the Dark Ones, machines born from a world consumed. They seek to claim all life, all light. They hunt us across stars. And she," the leader nodded toward Lyra, "is the last hope of our people." David listened in silence. His mind tried to grasp the scale of what she was saying. Worlds destroyed, enemies chasing across the galaxy. And here he was, a man with nothing but a rifle and a cabin that no longer stood. Another warrior added, "Lyra carries the source. A power passed through bloodlines. It is what the Dark Ones want. With it, they can crush the last free worlds." David frowned, looking at the girl asleep by the fire. She looked so fragile, so young. Yet inside her she carried the fate of worlds. The leader's voice softened. "And now, because she has chosen you, your fate is tied to ours." To hers. David rubbed his face, trying to breathe. He had never asked for this. He had never wanted war. But deep inside he knew he would not walk away. Not now. When Lyra woke, she looked stronger. Her glowing marks pulsed brighter. She sat up and met David's eyes. "You saved me," she said softly. "Now, I save you." David tilted his head. "Save me?" Lyra touched his chest right over his heart. "Hunters come again, more, stronger, not just you. Your world." She paused, her voice heavy with meaning. "If I fight for your people too." The fire cracked. The tribe sat in silence. David felt the truth settle inside him. This was no longer about one girl or one cabin. It was about Earth. He leaned closer, his voice steady. Then we fight together. Lyra smiled faintly. Her glowing hand lingered against his chest. Together, she repeated, her eyes bright with trust. That night, for the first time, David sat with the tribe. They told him stories of their lost world. Oceans that glowed like liquid light. Skies filled with floating cities. Songs that carried through the air like wind. But they also spoke of the fall. Of fire, of machines rising from the dark, of endless running. David listened, his heart heavy. These were not invincible warriors. They were survivors. Broken, scattered, holding on to hope through one fragile girl. As the fire burned low, Lyra leaned against him, her silver hair brushing his shoulder. David looked at the tribe, at the stars above, and finally understood. He was no longer just a man hiding in the woods. He was part of something far bigger. The choice he made had bound him to Lyra, to the tribe, and to a war that stretched across the stars. And yet, as the night stretched on, he felt something else. Not only fear, not only duty, but connection. A bond stronger than blood, born from trust. He looked at Lyra, who was now fast asleep beside him. And for the first time since the crash, David whispered words that surprised even himself. "You're not just my secret anymore. You're my family." The fire flickered, casting shadows that danced on the trees. The hunters were still out there, waiting, planning. But in that small clearing, among warriors from another world, David felt something stronger than fear. He felt ready. The night of silence was over. The next evening, the sky above the forest tore open with light. Dark ships, sharp as blades, broke through the clouds. They were not small like the wreck David had found. They were vast black shapes that blotted out the stars. The hunters had returned, and this time they had come in force. David stood with the tribe at the edge of the clearing. His rifle felt small in his hands, but his heart was steady. Beside him, Lyra's glowing marks pulsed brighter than ever, her silver hair whipping in the cold wind as the ships rumbled closer. The leader of the tribe raised her spear high. "The Dark Ones are here," she said, her voice carrying through the trees. "We stand or we fall." David looked back at the forest path. He expected fear, maybe emptiness, but then he saw them, people from the nearby town. Men, women, even teenagers. Some carried hunting rifles, others farm tools, torches, axes. They had followed the noise, the fire in the sky, and now they stood ready. One of the men called out, his voice shaking but strong. "If they're coming for Earth, we're not hiding." "We fight," David's chest tightened. These were ordinary people just like him. And yet they had come. The tribe looked uneasy. They had never trusted humans. But the leader glanced at David, then nodded. "So be it. Tonight we fight together." The ground shook as the first hunter machines dropped from the ships. Metal giants crashed into the earth, their red eyes glowing, their claws tearing at the soil. Hundreds, then thousands. The battle began. The tribe moved like silver lightning, their spears flashing, their blades cutting through machines. Crystals hummed, sending waves of energy that ripped hunters apart. The townsfolk fought with fire and steel, hacking at legs, setting traps, aiming for weak points. For every machine that fell, two more came. David fired shot after shot, aiming for joints, for eyes. His rifle cracked in rhythm with his heartbeat. Each bullet seemed small, but when the tribe struck at the same time, the hunters fell harder, faster. Beside him, Lyra stepped forward, her glowing marks blazing brighter than ever. She raised both hands and the air shook. A blast of light shot from her palms, cutting through a wave of machines like fire through paper. Hunters screamed, sparks flying as their bodies crumbled. The humans stopped, stunned for a moment. Then they roared with hope. "Push them back," someone shouted. The line of humans and aliens surged forward together. The forest became a storm of fire, light, and steel. But the enemy was endless. For every hunter destroyed, more poured from the ships. The ground shook under their weight. David's rifle clicked empty. He grabbed an axe from a fallen neighbor and swung with everything he had, cutting through exposed wires, breaking glowing red eyes. His muscles screamed, his hands bled, but he did not stop. Then he saw it, the largest machine yet. A giant, taller than the trees, dropping from the sky. Its body was black steel, its eyes blazing like suns. The tribe faltered. The humans froze. The machine roared, its voice shaking the ground. Lyra stepped forward, her body glowing brighter than ever, almost too bright to look at. She turned to David, her face calm but fierce. "This is the end," she whispered. "Or the beginning." David grabbed her arm. "You don't have to do this alone." She looked at him, her star-bright eyes soft. Together. Then she lifted her hands. The glow spread, covering her whole body, spreading to David too. He gasped as warmth surged through him, light wrapping around his chest, his arms, his heart. The giant machine charged. David and Lyra raised their hands together. A storm of light exploded. It was brighter than fire, stronger than thunder. It tore through the giant, ripping metal apart, shattering its body into burning shards that fell like meteors. The blast spread, cutting through wave after wave of hunters, wiping the forest clean of red light. When the glow faded, silence fell. The ships in the sky trembled, then turned, pulling back, vanishing into the clouds. The hunters were gone. The battlefield lay broken and smoking. Humans and tribe alike stood in stunned silence, staring at David and Lyra, who stood hand in hand, glowing faintly in the fading light. The leader of the tribe stepped forward, her face unreadable. Then she bowed. "The child of light has chosen her protector, and he has proven worthy." The townsfolk cheered weakly, some crying, some laughing. They had fought the impossible and survived. David looked at Lyra. Her marks were dim again, her body weak, but her smile was real. "You saved them," she whispered. He shook his head. "We saved them." The leader of the tribe raised her spear high. "Human and tribe together," she declared. "This is how we survive." David looked at the people around him, the warriors of another world, the farmers and workers of his own, and felt something stir deep inside. He had never been a soldier, never been a leader, but tonight he had become both. And as the first light of dawn broke over the forest, painting the sky in gold, David knew one thing for certain. This was not the end. This was the beginning. The world had changed forever.